It's working, I guess. I'm back after being away for a week. And I'm trying to remember what I was doing, and also trying to get the little bit of workbench that I've got here set up to do what I was doing, whatever that was. Yeah, things, while I was gone, there were like apparently massive software updates. The cables got switched maybe on the two monitors. There's two monitors here, and one of them is displaying absolutely nothing. There's no input into it. And the other one has, well, anyway, it's different. And I'm going to, get away for a week. Things change. Can't adapt. Old people like me just like, what happened? And I've been messing with this camera, trying to get it, but it seems to give a distorted picture. I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to continue working on the Savoia in my not studio workbench. Here, let me show you what I've got. I can move this. So I got this stuff done. You can see a lot of really cool detail here in the inside of the fuselage. And all these bits, these 4 bits here, wrap around the canopy, the pilot, the cockpit. This goes here, and it was attached, but now it's not, so I need to reattach that. And the thing I need to do most is finish the instrument panel, which is this beast. And it's looking pretty okay. I just need to wash it with a dark wash so that it takes on this sort of mahogany color that you see here. This is the piece of wood to which the instrument panel attaches. And I need to make this, the brown on there, this color, which I'll do by using a smoky ink wash, and hopefully be able to do that without getting the wash onto other stuff that it isn't supposed to get onto. Looking at here, I'm seeing it came out okay. It's not the perfection that I wanted, but you can actually see the little little hands and markings and stuff on the dials, which is okay. And the bezels are brass. That doesn't show up very well because there isn't very much of it, but it's there. So I just need to make it darker using the wash, and I'll be doing that sooner than later. Then what I will do while that's drying is continuing to work on the engine parts, okay, which you can't see because I didn't move the camera. There we go. There. Okay, that's good. Yeah. These are parts of the engine. I spent a fair amount of time, it's a week ago now, since I was here, prepping these parts, which means filing down this excess sprue, sanding down some of the mold marks that were on it, and then they get put together. These 4 pieces get put together like this to form the engine block and the headers. And then there's little bits that attach to them as well. The way this is supposed to be painted is that the headers, these things here, okay, get painted gloss black, and then the bottom part there, which is actually part of it, it's just like attached to it, is painted silver. And what I'm going to do, well, the assembly is going to be interesting because, the seams show. And so, as with like the fuel tank and a couple of other things, I cement them together and then sand out the seams so that they don't show. In this particular case, these 4 pieces need to come together. And then the nose, this little cone, has to go on the front as well because you don't want to show the seam there very much. It is a separate piece. You can see that. But that all needs to be painted together at the same time so that, the paint shows okay. I'm not sure what these bits are. But they get painted silver except for these little like handlebars or something that show up on the back. So I haven't prepped these little pieces yet, so I'm going to be doing that after I get the instrument panel done. And then starting to assemble this because until it's assembled, I can't sand out the seams. And the cement needs to set. Just looking at this, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to put these 4 pieces together first. Okay. I'll put those together first and clamp them with some clothespins and then prep these little pieces after that, just to give the cement more time to set. And then if I'm feeling brave, I'm going to at least I'm going to try to assemble this bit, okay, which is the cover over the cockpit. There's always complications. In this particular case, the complication is that we have a sitting down Porco Rosso who's supposed to fit in that chair. I haven't tested that yet. I probably should to see if he actually does fit in that chair. If he does, then after I assemble that cage sort of thing that goes over the top of the cockpit, these parts all come together and they end up looking like that. There's an opening in the top. That opening is either going to be large enough to put the Porco Rosso in after that's attached, or it won't. And if it is, then I'll attach it and this will all be done except for the Porco Rosso sitting in the chair. If it isn't big enough for Porco Rosso to go through, then I need to just sort of stop and work on the Porco Rosso miniature so I can get the Porco Rosso miniature in first before I put that on. I've learned the hard way sometimes that, if you follow the assembly instructions, things get put together and then something else isn't going to fit. So that's what I'll be doing, hopefully, and being successful at it today. So this is going to be something I'll be working on a little bit later, but this is something I need to get to sooner than later. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to be looking over to the side here because the chat screen has moved, as has the view of what you should be seeing. I don't know if you're actually seeing it or not, but if you're watching, you should be seeing an instrument panel on a holder thing here. Yeah, that's what you should be seeing. So there. Just a little bit. I want it up higher because I want to get wash on the edges as well. Is the part that show. Okay. Set that down so I don't knock it over and lose it. I'm going to see if the Porco Rosso fits in the chair. Porco Rosso is headless. That's another thing I need to do is put his head on. Okay. That's not too bad. Even though he's headless, Porco Rosso fits there. His feet go between all of the other bits, the little controls that are in there, and his feet go on the rudder pedals, and the control stick is between his legs. I think I'm going to put him on with rubber cement. Okay, so I know he fits in the seat. What I don't know is whether he'll fit through the top of the cage of the canopy when the time comes. I also know that this little minifig has mold seams and screws and is missing its head. I need to there's his face. Yeah. Need to get his head on. Well, I'm going to need to do that before I get too much further. Well, there. Since I'm getting to the point where that's an important thing to do, probably actually work on that as well over the next either today or tomorrow. Just trying to find things. They all kind of moved around. Be right back. The other new stuff is we have, if you look behind me, we Dyson Dungeons borrowed some money from some of the owners of Dyson Dungeons and bought some 3D printers upgrades. They're really excellent printers. They've been tested and they work quickly, and more importantly, you can get spare parts. The 3D printers we had before were real workhorses. Okay, we did a lot of stuff with them, including the dungeon tiles that I show off every now and then, and we'll do a little later. But apparently, you can't get parts for them anymore, and things do break on them. So decided to get new ones, and 4 or 5 years later, they're better than the old ones were. Now, I've only used up 15 minutes. It's been like that lately. I used to be able to use up a half hour before actually doing anything, but that time seems to have been cut short lately. Get a brush. Get another brush. So what you're about to see might be the only painting that happens on Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungeons today. The rest of it is going to be sanding and filing and cementing. I mean, that's what's going to happen today. I think I'm going to use. I have to be careful with this wash. I want it to get onto all of the brown, but not on anything else. And so I'm going to use the tiniest brush I have, so I can get it in between these dials. So I guess can't finish unless it gets started. So I guess I'm going to get ready to do that and hope it works out. The other thing I want to do is the paper towel that was covering all of this is now under here. And I'm going to go just get another one. To move this out of the way as much as I can. Yeah, well, you're seeing pretty much everything I'm going to be working on today, I guess. The instrument panel, these bits, Porco Rosso sitting in the plane, and then there's some little bits here in the container that need to be sanded and filed. And then after the stream, I would check with our tech support, which means Alexis, our DM, try to figure out how to get my other monitor working. As I put things back the way I wanted them. What happened while I was gone was that Nicole, I've talked about her, she plays Zoya Ansul, a changeling druid, who is a real artist. Painted some minifig bosses, the boss minifigs, the important minifigs, for a Dungeons and Dragons show. She decided not to stream that because couldn't schedule it well at the right time for her. But they look absolutely amazing. I don't have them here, but I think we'll show them off. You need to show them off. I want the instrument panel to look good. And this is an important part of it. Yep. The lenses already fell off. They clip into this little thing up here, but it just doesn't hold right. Spend a little bit of time adjusting these and my head. There we go. This is going to take forever because the brush is so tiny. But it has to be in order to get in between these spots. So I've gone silent already. So I'm trying to focus on getting this wash on here. It looked fairly even. Doesn't have to be perfectly even. This could be, it could have some nice wood grain on it. chat about today. Just it's been that way for the last week or two. Is not wanting to repeat stuff I've already talked about. Doing it, having done this now for over a year. Practically everything I could talk about, I've talked about. I could do like a rerun season. Over the last year, these are the things you heard me blather on about. Kind of a retrospective kind of thing. I suppose I could do that. I don't know if that's cheating. Not getting it on the brush. I'm not too much on the brush. But it's not as even as I would like it. The story is that this is a burled walnut instrument panel. That's the story I'm going with, which will explain the variation in the color. Some of it where it got a little too thick. It doesn't look too bad, even under magnification. Get the edge here. I can touch that up a little bit after it's attached if I need to. Like about these. Okay, that's how it looks now. It's darkened. I haven't messed up the dials. It looks okay. It looks acceptable at least. Yep, that'll do. Okay, set it like this. Like I said, I don't want to knock it over and lose it or something. I'm gonna let that dry, and then actually attach it to the thing onto which it attaches. I'll cement it on there. Promise that probably will be the only painting that will happen on Relaxing Painting today. And I'm going to set it in here. Yeah, get these bits out. I'm going to be doing some cementing and sanding and filing and little things like that. But I've been kind of putting this off for a while now. I need to put Porco's head on, Porco's body. Screw mark under here that is interfering with that. Get successfully attached the head. There's just it's just messy. There's a lot of mold seams, mold marks where the edges of the mold, the two halves of the mold came together, but not enough. And you can see where the edges of the mold were, and that needs to be fixed. I'm using a file on this. You would, I've said before that this is usually where I would use some sort of sandpaper so I didn't get scratches. But in this case, this this cannot be seen. This is the attachment point for the, the head going into the collar of his flight suit. Actually, if there's a few little scratches on it, that is not going to matter. What does matter is whether his head fits there or not. It doesn't look too weird. Yeah, I mean it fits there. There's kind of a gap between his head and the collar. Maybe a bigger gap than there should be. It's hard for me to see it. Oh. Yeah, okay. My fingers are working really not that well today. Take this down a little bit more. His head doesn't fit his shoulders that terribly well. I'm going to stick his head on his body, and I don't know if, no, okay, what I'm going to do, I changed my mind again, is actually clean up the body before I cement the head on. But I want to make sure that the head fits nicely. Yeah. One would like somebody's head to fit well. I can clean up, there's mold seams on the head too. I'm going to do some of this with the head magnifier on, I think. Just not happy with how this fits. I guess, I'm not sure what to do about it. So I guess what I'm going to talk about today is talking about what I don't have anything to talk about. So over the course of like this last year, when I was building the submarine, which launches nuclear missiles, the missiles aren't nuclear, the warheads are nuclear. I got to talk about growing up in the 1950s and 60s, going to the state fair and seeing fallout shelters. People would sell fallout shelters at the state fair that you could bury in your backyard. And we never got one. I was kind of disappointed. It looked like a really cool place just to hang out, like a little cave, and I got to talk about how we had emergency rations in our school basement because the school basement was a designated fallout shelter. Got to talk about nuclear blast radiuses. That was kind of fun when I was a kid. They'd show if a 1 megaton bomb fell on the airport, which was the only military target in the city where I grew up, because they had some military planes at the commercial airport. There were these cool circles on a map that showed, where you would be totally obliterated and then you'd just be incinerated. The first circle is just evaporated. And then the next one is the thermal bit would incinerate you. And then the next one would be you were killed by flying debris. And then the final circle would be, depending on the wind, kind of where you'd have some damage, but you wouldn't be evaporated or incinerated. That was fun to talk about for a while. Let's see. I need the cement. I'm going to stick Porco's head on. It's going to be the major event here of the moment, anyway, is getting Porco's head on his body. See if the cement is flowing. The cement is different. Wait, well, when I was building models in elementary school and maybe freshman year of high school or something, only could use tube cement. Never got the liquid cement. This is different though. It doesn't as aggressively melt the plastic as the old stuff used to, and it's more of a contact cement, really. It's even called contacta. I found it doesn't hold as well. Okay, well, that Porco looks particularly happy here, even though he's been, remember what I said? How I was going to clean up the body before I cemented the head on? I didn't. I didn't do that thing that I said I was going to do, which means that I need to do it now with the head on. But I don't know if you can see it. There's some extra sprue here. There's a line all the way down the side of the body on the shoulder and the legs where the mold, in this case, they didn't match up all that well. And then it's underneath the body and down the side of the body on this side as well. So I'll be cleaning that up. Let's see. Porco's wearing a mask. Yeah. Well, I'm going to let this set for just a bit so that when I do start cleaning it up, I'm not likely to knock his head off. And while that is setting, before I start sanding at it, what I'm going to do is, she keeps saying, I've been doing that a lot lately. What I haven't been doing is saying whatever. I generally say that over and over and over. Again. I'm hesitating because these are tiny little pieces, and I like to work, when I'm working on something like this, I like to put them over a box so that if I drop them, they don't fall on the floor. The box, I'll just use this. It's got stuff in it already. But that's okay. This is instrument panel mock-ups or tests for the Apollo model. I can talk about that later. Okay, so I'm going to work over this box, which has been used to prime and paint things, but it's just less likely that I'll lose these if I work over a box. This, trying to feel, sometimes these things are molded and they're they're fine, except like right on the edge, there's like a little lip. In this particular case, what I'm feeling with my thumb right here is that has to be sanded off. It's just a bump. I don't know why there's a bump there, but there is. It's a little bit there. Okay, so I need to get my super duper sanding block out, and I'm going to use a really fine grit emery cloth on that little bump because this is going to be painted metallic, and scratch marks will show. Can't see the bump, I can only feel it, but it's pretty prominent. As I sand it, it'll become more apparent. It'll be a lighter color compared to the plastic underneath it. I think this particular bump it's not associated with anything. It's just I've had this before on items like this. There's a little when the injection molding is done and the mold is pulled away. Sometimes it just leaves a blemish, like extra plastic just sticks to it, and that happened a couple of times on the Apollo model. It was really in the wrong place. It was like on the heat shield or the side of the command module. So yes, I got to talk about nuclear holocaust and how we were prepared for it. When I was building the submarine, that was fun. I got to talk about the reason the Polaris submarines were built and interdepartmental rivalry about who got to control nuclear weapons, that kind of thing. That was fun. I talked about TV theme songs for different superhero cartoons, genres of television shows because there were westerns, and then the James Bond films came out, and then instead of westerns, we were filled with all sorts of spy thriller kinds of things, like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Mission Impossible and Secret Agent Man and Get Smart and stuff like that. Television, I don't know if it still is. I don't watch television that much anymore. So I don't find it terribly interesting. But that was, we didn't have like handheld devices and video games and stuff. So it was our way of going, uh, quasi coma like state was watching TV. Clearly very derivative. I think they tried a medical show. I think Dr. Kildare came out first. But then one of the other networks said, well, people are watching doctor shows. We better have Ben Casey, right? But I don't remember there being more than two, unlike westerns and spy shows where there were half a dozen or more. Was it comedies like the Griffith showed Mayberry RFD kind of thing, and that's where Opie got his start. Then he became Ron Howard and directed stuff. Which thing did I talk about? Well, while I was building the Apollo model, I got to talk all about the space race and how we were failures and depended upon, ex-Nazis to keep our space program going. I think I got that bit off, so that's okay. Take a look at this and see what it is like. Yeah, it's hard to see, but I had already sanded this a little bit. The seam came right across, and it was really obvious. And it went in here too, and I think I got that off. Let's take it off the ends here. I can still see it a little bit on the ends. These get painted metallic. Just any kind of flaw on the surface shows. So I, people who do this as a professional and they're really good at it spend a lot of time what I'm doing, just getting rid of obvious flaws. I don't know if this is going to show in the bottom or not, but there's, I don't know if you can even see it, but there's just this difference in reflectivity, and that says that there's a seam there that's going to show. I think that's the bottom. So it would be very hard to see unless you took the plane apart, or rotated it significantly, but I'm going to clean it off anyway. Simply not knowing what will be visible and not until I start test fitting stuff. Surprised that I haven't dropped anything yet. I'm sure I just cursed myself. I use a slightly coarser bit of sandpaper in there. Thanks for joining in. I am back after being a week away, working on prepping the parts for the engine of the Porco Rosso Savoia S.21. And so far, I have put a little bit of dark reddish brown wash on the instrument panel, which is ready to be assembled. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I put the head on the sitting Porco Rosso figure, and that's waiting to have its mold seam marks sanded out. Like what I'm doing to this thing now is sanding out mold seam marks, where the two halves of the mold come together and then leave a little ridge of plastic, or sometimes a misalignment. Like this is actually misaligned a little bit. There. This back in here. And then this bit has all sorts of protuberances on it, and I don't know which of these are parts of the model and which of these are just extra bits of plastic. I'm pretty sure this bit in the middle isn't supposed to be there. That, I think, is a bit of the sprue. I can't tell from the instructions, so that. Oh, okay. I look at it. All there are. This is how it's supposed to be. Okay. Guess it goes this way. That's the attachment point. That attaches to that other thing I was working on. I'm going to test fit that. And there are 3 protuberances here, but on the edges, I don't see anything sticking out on either side here. So what I'm going to do is there's a little bit of excess plastic on the end of this middle one. Off. This is a very complicated part of the engine. I think maybe it's the carburetor. I don't know. The little pokey bits on it. It's all supposed to be painted silver, in which case the detail is going to get lost. So this is probably going to be one of those pieces where I get 2 or 3 of shades of the metallic and paint some pieces lighter and some pieces darker, just so you can see that there are little bits of it that are different than the other bits, or they're sticking out, or however. I definitely want to work over the box. I'm working over a box so that when I drop it, I say when, not if, it falls in the box and I have a good chance of finding it, unlike if I drop it on the floor, in which case then it's a minor miracle if I can find it or not. Anyway, I know I said anyway again. I'm cutting back on my anyways. I'm trying to minimize the use of anyway. Minimize humming or umming as well. So I was kind of not having anything to talk about. I was recapping the things I was talking about over the past year. And I sort of promised, but I never kept that promise, to show the submarine and the Apollo model, to show what those looked like, because the submarine is done and the Apollo model is almost done. Lots of those parts are finished, but I haven't pulled them out of the boxes to show them off. I'm putting these on so I can see what's going on with this little piece. I can't tell. You probably can't see it, but on the ends here, there's little bits of plastic that either are an extension of the almost positive now that they're not supposed to be there. If they are, they're misshapen. The picture. Looking for guidance as to what those are supposed to look like. It looks like what happens is that they're going to be covered up anyway, because when the engine compartment is assembled around the engine, these bits on the back disappear. And they get covered up by this piece. I wonder if that piece is maybe supposed to be removable. Sure. The engine sits on top of the fuselage. It's suspended above it by these legs. Really don't know, but they don't look good. Painted, they'll look even worse. So I think that I am going to take them off. And this isn't going to bother the integrity of the model at all. But they're just little bits of plastic that don't seem to fit there. It's not very well. Maybe if I just shorten them a little bit. Pin. This is, I mean, really fiddly, right? But there we go. Clean that off. Edges here. Takes on a different appearance than it did. And then it looks like it belongs. Get it to be symmetric then. Yeah, see, once that comes off, just some loose plastic there that was in the way, then it looks like totally different, and it looks like it belongs. It looks like it belongs. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit and then leave it alone until it's time to paint it. Bits of plastic just sort of marring the surface. Right now this is unprimed, and I'm going to assemble the block of the engine before I prime it, because I need to sand off and to sand down all the seams that will show once it's cemented. You know, the cement seams. Just making this a little shorter to match the other side. And if I prime it, then I end up just sanding off the primer. These little bits like this and the ones in the can here, I will prime separately. get to that. See how this is supposed to fit. Little square. It's interesting. Usually they're round, but this is a square attachment point. Yeah, it actually fits pretty well. Always be surprised by that. It actually worked. This goes into the back of this like this. I'm guessing those are carburetors. They're supposed to be. So this bit is supposed to end up being painted silver, except for these things on the end, which are black. And I'm going to paint it several shades of silver, at least 2 shades of silver, so that some of the detail shows. But those 2 parts fit. This is done. Then there's this weird, how this is supposed to work, and I probably won't be able to tell until I get it put together. But there's like this is made out of a totally different kind of plastic. This little, maybe it's a bearing. I think that's where the shaft of the propeller goes. So the propeller is supposed to actually turn. There's 2 of them attached to this. I thought this was one piece at first. It was weird. It looks like a piece, right? It looks like part of an instrument panel or something, but it isn't. It's 2 of these little plastic bearings or bushings. I'm not sure. I really don't know what they are or how it's supposed to go together or why they're on this big stalk like this. But I was baffled by that because I kept looking for this little round bit. Okay. And there was no, and I kept looking for this, and there is no such thing as this anywhere on the model. So it's pretty obvious that's that. I'm not going to mess with these until it's time to assemble. Oh, and here, this is the cheater version of the instrument panel. Instead of being painted like the one I finished earlier in the stream, this is a decal. In some ways, it's better than the painting, but in some ways, it just looks like a decal. So the main difference is I painted the edges of the bezel brass instead of black. And these are red and green here on the decal, but I painted them black on the model. Maybe I'll go back to that and see if I want to change it. I don't know. So the instrument panel, this is what it looks like painted. Yeah, one of these is red and the other one's green on the decal, but actually I don't like it like that. I like the better black like that. I think it looks better. So this is ready to be, yeah, I think it looks okay. It's ready to be attached. And it gets attached to this. I'm definitely using the painted one. Why not? Having gone through the trouble of painting it. These have magnets in the base, which is pointless. I don't know why they are, but it causes trouble. little holes here and here, and two little pegs back. And they're supposed to line up to each other. Doing there. That's how it's supposed to go together. Put some cement on it and hopefully get it to line up again. Just putting this on so I can actually see it a little better. To be careful, I get it on my fingers and then touch the wrong thing and it melts the paint and melts the plastic, and that will just be awful. You need just a little touch up with the wash there and across the top. And there's the instrument panel. Little pins don't seem to make any difference. Let's see, making sure it's lined up. Okay. Well, since this is now, pretty much put together, I'm going to let the cement set for a bit and then do a little touch up with the wash. Maybe not. Maybe it looks okay. I wanted the holder and the panel to look kind of like mahogany or walnut or right. Why aren't those little pins fitting into the little holes and making it just stable? I don't understand sometimes why things don't work. Trying to make sure it's lined up since the pins are not doing their job. Best not mess with it anymore. I bumped it a little bit before and moved it. So this gets attached to other little bits that form a cage. Really is just a cage that goes around the cockpit. It becomes the cockpit. And just checking symmetry here and alignment. And I'm just going to put it away. Here, I'll show you the bits. These bits here get cemented together. Tiny little, almost inadequate contact points where they all touch each other that need to be cemented somehow in a way that holds it together. So I'll get to those maybe a little later today, maybe Friday. All right, I'm going to now do some more cementing, I guess. And this is the engine block and headers. And these 4 pieces go together like this. And 4, 2, and 5. And I numbered them so I could get them right. So this is 1 and 4. I'm going to do some test fitting here. See how they fit. They fit like this. And then when that happens, there's going to be a seam across the top that will be visible. And on the sides, it's really visible on the sides. Not so much on this side because there's a pipe covering it. So after I cement these together, let the cement set and dry, then I'll sand those off so that they don't show. And I'm going to attach these bits to each other. And then once it's 2 parts instead of 4, the block, these bits cement together on the bottom, creating a, I don't know what it is, a V6. Yeah, it is. Yeah, those are the valves. You can't see any of this. I never put the camera back. Great. Sorry about that. Yeah, when I'm attaching this part to this part right here. And then, as I said, I'll sand off the seams, get some clothespins. These make really good clamps, by the way. So if you want to do model building on the cheap, which is what I do, okay, make do with what you can get, and what this will do is hold that together while the cement sets. And that fits so nicely. There, I get it. Yeah, I got it off. Let me just get on with it. I was talking in plurals again. I had a discussion about why talk in plurals when it's obvious. I can, if I say let us put cement on, I know obviously you are not here with me putting cement on the piece. So I say let's. I don't know. I did mention that I saw a Bob Ross TV thing, one of his painting shows, and he talked in plurals too. But that might have been because he was doing a painting show and thought that the people watching it would be painting along, maybe. I don't know. Sure. But I'm trying to not say whatever as much. I'm trying not to as much. This is my New Year's resolution, I guess, is not as much, not whatever as much, and talk in singular instead of plural. Yeah, so you can see the seams are going to be there. They're going to be visible, like right here. Yeah, but I'll be sanding that off. And I'm going to clamp this so that it's important on the top for that to be tight. But otherwise, not only will there be a seam, but there'll be a gap. Behind. Okay, maybe I'm not going to clamp it. Yeah, that's a TV show. Beverly Hillbillies. The Clampets. I don't think they had anything to do with what I just did, which is, clamping parts together. Okay. So 2 and 5 get connected. This is the same deal, except on the other side of the engine. Just fit the parts to make sure, they fit together pretty well. Same deal, you can see the seams where the parts come together. Down there, it closed the gap between one part and the other. These parts are actually large enough for me to grab onto. I haven't worked with parts that are large enough to hold in quite a while. Once the cement sets, sand down the seams before I assemble the two halves together. They're going to go like that. And now this is unnecessary. It's holding the parts so that I could tell which one was supposed to go where. Guess I'm going to go back to the Porco Rosso figure now. This needs to be assembled. This whole bit here, all those little pieces I showed you are assembled into forming this cage. And that needs that. Anyway, that's going to be all those pieces need to come together neatly and probably all at the same time. And the contact points are really tiny. Maybe I'll get to those today, maybe not. How am I doing on time? 11:30? Yeah, about half done. Cap this up. Clean off the cement on the outside of it, but I didn't want to use my paint rag and then end up getting cement on the brush. So there. I guess I'm making progress. I got the instrument panel washed. That took a while because it was so tiny. I had to do like one drop of wash at a time, kind of. So that was time consuming, tedious. See, I got these done. I got the parts prepped. I got Porco Rosso's head on his body. This Porco Rosso, once it's painted, is going to sit inside the cockpit of the plane. And I test fit it which was a good thing. And his feet sit on the rudder pedals, and the control yoke is between his legs, just like it should be. Right now, though, it's a mess. It's got mold seams down both sides and in between. And there's just, you can see the misshapen foot. That's just a piece of, that's excess plastic from the molding process. So put this aside too, and start sanding away the seams. His head is, it's not falling off, so there is that to be said. I put my head magnifiers on for this. Here, do camera magic by moving that around. There's two Porco Rosso figures for this model. There's the one that sits in the plane, and I want him to be in the plane. I mean, I could have the plane without him in it, but and he covers up some of the detail in the cockpit. And the other Porco Rosso figure is a display thing, bigger, and it goes on a stand so that it can be, basically he just stands there next to his plane. It'd be nice if I could get a closer view while I was doing this sort of thing, but we're not really set up to do that. I need a zoom camera so that the camera can be, not bumping into my head, but at the same time it shows closer. That's way past beyond the existing budget for this stream. Okay, well this side's not too bad. There's a sprue bit. Is this on camera? Good. There's this piece of the sprue that I can file down and then sand the rest. This side is really bad. You can see, wow, I mean, really, really bad. Like the back doesn't really even match the front, and then there's a chunk here. This is going to require sculpting, not just sanding. It's wearing he's wearing goggles, and he's got goggles on his helmet. I'm a little baffled by what they were trying to do here. I'll look at the painting instructions later. Yeah, I think I need to file this down before I sand it. This is just really very poorly done. Be careful about this too. I don't want to get rid of some detail that's important, like the strap on the seatbelt. The two halves of the mold on this side of the body did not line up, and so it's a real mess, especially along here, right where his arm is. use the file to get to 90%, and then use sandpaper on the rest. Probably like 600 grit, and then like 1500 grit to polish it. Glad I'm wearing the head magnifiers because it really helps me see what needs to be done, which is quite a lot. Oh yeah, that was another one of my screeds. I'll call it a screed of design versus manufacturing, right? So there's design engineers say, this is what we want the thing to look like. They like to get all, detailed and fancy and things. And then there are the manufacturing engineers who are given the job of, here, make this thing that the design engineers came up with. And sometimes they just need to shake their head and say, no, this can't be done. Or it can be done, but this is what it'll cost. And, the vice president of something or other will come along and say, well, that can't happen. We can't spend that kind of money. And then they have to decide whether to yell at the design engineers or the manufacturing engineers. And then marketing probably gets involved. It's like, this is what the people want. They don't know that. But that's their job to say what they, to say this is what the people want. My brother worked at a plant once they made heavy equipment, like backhoes and bulldozers and things like that. Okay. And they had these, really complicated transfer cases where the power from the engine went to either locomotion or a tool that was attached to the chassis, and the tools were different. They all required different types of power. So the design, and this frequently involved making very small holes in very tough pieces of metal. Okay. With extremely fine tolerances. Because the design engineers designed it with extremely fine tolerances. And then the manufacturing engineers were sitting there looking at this going, how can we make this happen? The complication came because they were drilling holes in metal, right? And extremely fine tolerances. But because metal expands and contracts with temperature, okay, what might be within tolerance at a certain temperature could be out of spec with just a few degrees difference. So in order to get things within spec, the temperature had to be controlled. But as you know, when you drill metal with metal, that creates a lot of heat, which causes the hole that's being drilled to maybe be bigger than it should be. And then, then it cools off and it changes size, sometimes enough to make a difference in whether it's in spec or not. Manufacturing engineers are sitting there saying, how can we possibly drill these holes with this kind of tolerance, when just the thermal expansion and contraction of the metal is enough to throw everything off. And worse yet, they were tiny little holes with tiny little drills drilling into very, very tough metal. There's always a chance, more than zero chance, that a drill could bind in the hole and break, and then you've got a hole half filled with a drill bit. Got that roughed in. These bits will all be sanded down next. I'm just trying to get it close. Get like 90% of the problem out of the way with the file, and then use sandpaper to get the rest of it. Because this leaves scratches in a rough surface. I'm not sure if the same thing happens here, but on the submarine model, there was some evidence that the design engineers, or the designers of the model, and then the people who did the molding were not on the same page. Because there were parts that just like universally failed. There was a particular, I had 3 submarine models, so I had, I could find missing, there weren't any missing parts, but there were parts that were just misshapen. There was an instrument panel where it was 2 out of the 3. It was obvious that what happened is that the plastic didn't fill the mold. Either not enough was injected, or it wasn't enough pressure when it was injected. And so, yeah, they just had like a hole in it. Unfortunate, because the design engineers had put all sorts of little highly detailed dials and buttons and stuff on it. And, if there's not enough plastic in the mold, it gets lost. Fortunately, the first one was really badly misshapen. Probably close to 10% of the plastic of the thing hadn't been filled in. Really, it was that bad. And the next one, I got, okay, well, let's look at the next one. Opened the other box, found the part, and it too was misshapen in exactly the same place. So that this was an ongoing manufacturing flaw. When 2 models have the same problem of the mold not being filled in the same way, and they weren't done at the same time. But fortunately, the third one was okay. That was good. So it was a great sigh of relief, because I was looking at pretty much having to fill in the missing plastic, the gap, and then recreate the surface of the instrument panel. I was looking at the possibility of having to refabricate the part that was badly done. But it was just amazing. It wasn't just one model, it was multiple. And that happened in a couple of other parts as well, where it was just pretty clear that it was not being produced well. Okay, so it's not totally done yet, because I have to go around and sand it down now to polish it. To get it finished. So as I work on this, and this particular model compared to the submarine and compared to the Apollo is actually pretty well done. Okay, it doesn't have too many real problems compared to those, but as you can see, as I'm working on this, it still has some, right? It's still got a lot of work that needs to be done to make the model presentable. It is slightly turned. I guess that's okay. Sometimes that's good to not have it be perfectly straight. And yeah, my brother told me that story about the design engineers, getting all, oh yeah, this is so sophisticated and cool, but it can't be built, at least with a reasonable scrap rate. VPs, the VPs tended to side with the design people. Because that was the cool part. Oh yeah, let's do this really cool design stuff, as opposed to the people who are actually making things. And then if there's ended up being a lot of scrap, it was the manufacturing engineers who are responsible for that and the costs associated with it, because they were the ones building it, or in this case failing to be able to build it because it wasn't buildable. Trying to get it. It's these little bits, the ripples, the little contours, like where the pieces of the belt come together and stuff. It's hard to get those sanded. I don't want to use the file on it, because that'll just scar it up right at the top of the shoulder, so it's really obvious. I mean, it's a very, very visible spot. As long as there's a white line, like that, that means that it's not done yet. It's when it becomes a single color, like I've succeeded down here on part of the arm. Now, this is going to take the better part of never forever. Just because of the way it is. Eventually, these things get done, but they seem to take a long time. Worst parts are always in the most visible area. Where should we put a hideous seam that will show? Oh, I know. Let's put it on the guy's arm or the top of its head. Okay. There's still, can't see it as much, but I can still feel. There it is. You can. Yeah, this is going to take a while. So you all need to be patient while I put my head over this, and you can just watch me rub this brown plastic model with a little bit of sandpaper for hours. And I'm working on this particular figure right now because after I build the cockpit cage, I need to find out whether it will be able to fit through it into the seat, or whether I need to put it on the seat first. And if I need to put it on the seat first, it needs to be done. Different material here. It's starting to get a little frustrating. All I've got so far is the side of one arm, and there's all the rest of it to do yet. A few episodes ago, I was talking about, I'm not a master modeler or a skilled painter. So what this is the how-to show it all. It's how to make models look pretty good. Not box top display good, like the models that they show on the box tops that are just perfect, but are pretty nice. They look good. Most people, if you look at them from maybe 12 inches away under adequate but not terrific lighting. Oh, better be the strap of its helmet. Yes, it's his goggles. I'm just looking at this here, this line on the back of its head. Those are, what the hell? Sorry. I don't know what that's supposed to be. His goggles go around the top. That's just It's just a flaw. I have to work on that too. So when I was a kid, building a model would take at most 2 days. And the reason it would take 2 days is because the cement didn't set very rapidly. And sometimes, like, you glue the halves of the fuselage together, put some rubber bands around it, they'd say, well, you know, let it set for 24 hours. So I'd put the wings together and rubber band them and put the fuselage together. The wings always came the top half and the bottom half. And then put rubber bands on them. Did that. And then next day, just attach the wings to the fuselage and stick the wheels on the bottom. Always wheels that got to be stuck on the bottom. And then put the decals on, and that was it. But they never looked like model on the box top. To some extent, it was because I didn't paint them. And there was that. But it was also because all the seams showed, and that was an issue. But then I read a book about modeling, and it just talked about techniques that were I still don't use them. They're just overwhelming. But working on these models, it's become clear that the people who make the models on the box tops are just doing a huge amount of what I'm doing here, except even more. To get rid of mold marks and sprues and filling in gaps, polishing and sanding. Most of the model making for me when I was young was gluing parts together. And then a little bit later, it was gluing parts together and painting. But this kind of stuff, I'm not sure I would have even noticed the flaws in the molding. You can't see it now, but there used to be a big chunk of plastic that's stuck out right here between its glove and its pants. Most of that is gone. Try to get the scratch marks out. I'm glad this is, except for the head, one solid piece, because it gives me something to hold on to without breaking it. Like, I can hold on to the other leg while I'm sanding this, and it's not, the leg isn't breaking off. I consider that to be a huge victory, that parts aren't breaking off. The 800 grit. I didn't think this was going to be as much of a chore as it is. And I saw, before I put my head magnifiers on, I could see that there were some seams and things, but it's really a mess. It's really not well done. And the worst part was right here where the pants and the gloves, everything all come together. I can't use a file on it because that would just leave too much of a mark. It's very slow and tedious. I'm not sure how much more I'm going to be able to get done today other than, this has to be done. So I'll start it. I might as well finish it, right? But it really needs something to chat about while I'm rubbing this with sandpaper. Here. This was there's just a lot of mess right here that when I said, when I looked at it, I said, this is going to require sculpting more than anything else. It turned out that was the truth. This line on his arm go away. It was the first thing I did. I thought I had it done, but it's persisting. What else have I talked about? Doing a retrospective here. I talked about how certain industries just totally disappeared without a whimper. There were no lobbyists, no big news stories about job killing and all of that kind of thing, even though probably tens of thousands of jobs disappeared as a result of certain changes. And one of those was the television antenna industry. Okay. All the people who got the raw materials for the television antennas turned them into parts that, are used, the manufacturer of the television antennas, the sales, the installation, the maintenance, all of those things, all of those jobs disappeared with cable. Now, maybe some of those folks, like the installers who got up on the roofs and put the television antennas on, maybe some of them got employment with like the dish people. But certainly the manufacturing, all of the manufacturing that went into these television antenna, all those jobs disappeared. Now I'm polishing it because I was using a slightly coarser sandpaper. Trying to get it shaped. And just about the same time, maybe a little bit earlier, the vacuum tube industry. The radios and televisions were filled with vacuum tubes. There were people who made them, got the raw materials for them, made them, distributed them, designed them. Okay. That wasn't a trivial thing, designing those. Making the testing machines, the machines to use to test them, the boxes that they came in. Just, you think about all the different components of something like that. It adds up to huge amounts of jobs that just, no, we don't do this anymore. And transistors didn't create the same sort of, it didn't replace the jobs. It just didn't do that. But, where was the vacuum tube lobby? Where were the people screaming about, let's not use transistors, let's not do that, it'll be job killing? And it was. I mean, it really was job killing. But no one came out to protect it. So it always kind of, it just makes me wonder why does some jobs deserve, lobbying and protection, and other jobs like that just disappear and we don't even notice that they're gone. Okay, well, I've got all the way down to its hand, and I've got another hour. Okay. This half hour went slowly. Time was creeping as I was resculpting this part of the model. This was very messy. There was just this big blob of plastic there, like a big ridge. And now it's actually pretty good. So I can move on to cramping my hand from holding this so tightly. Move on to these bits here. Going between the legs. That's one thing with a file. It's another thing with the sandpaper. This is going to be annoying. This way. And you wouldn't think that, this is kind of like inside, right? That this wouldn't be as much of an issue, but it is, because when it sits in its seat, it's pretty visible. Yeah, this is not good back here. As I'm sanding it, I'm seeing that it's even more of a problem than it was when I was just using the file on it. Oh, well, that was doing a lot of bending over there. What else have I talked about in the last year? Airplanes, got to talk about. As I was building this, the airplanes I grew up with. There was a lot of rapid advances and innovation in the 50s and 60s. Just nowadays, seriously, like if you look at a jet fighter bomber, it'll take 10 years to develop it and get a prototype flying. And seriously. And then they stay in service for the better part of 25 years after that. But in the 50s and 60s, there were new models coming out and old ones being retired on a much shorter cycle, like 5 years from start to finish, kind of. Really, really rapid changes, and then, like always, there was investment in dumb things. Just say this: it was a kind of a beautiful plane, really, but it was also useless in the real world, which was the B-58 Hustler. Back in the day, before intercontinental ballistic missiles were really a big, reliable thing, when they were still liquid fueled. Okay. And sometimes, during testing would blow up, that kind of thing. The development was supersonic bombers, fly higher, fly faster, harder to shoot down if they're moving fast and high. So the first one was the B-58 Hustler that could sprint at supersonic speeds. It couldn't cruise at supersonic speeds. It sprinted at that. But in order to be supersonic, it had 4 engines on this little plane that wasn't terribly much bigger than some of the fighters at the time. And it had to carry its weapon in a pod underneath it because the fuselage was so tiny. It couldn't carry anything internally. And it couldn't go supersonic for very long, and it couldn't fly very far at all anyway with the fuel that it could carry. So the idea was that it would take off and then be refueled, and then it would get near its target, within the border, within the range of air defense, be refueled again, and then it would go supersonic and make a huge dash. I mean, just quick dash to the target, drop its bomb, and hopefully get away so that it could be refueled again. It would have to be refueled again fairly quickly because it used up all of its fuel with its mad dash to the target. And like I said, if you see one, it was just an absolutely gorgeous delta wing plane, but it was only in service for a few years before the decision was that it just wasn't going to work. That kind of thing happened. All new plane development is slow and tedious and hugely expensive. And the result isn't all that spectacular either. Then there was, oh yeah, the B-70 that was supposed to cruise at supersonic speeds, and they built two of them as prototypes and managed to crash one. That was so sad and stupid. So the Valkyrie, the supersonic bomber, was beautiful, snake-nosed, painted white, because otherwise at twice the speed of sound, the paint would like melt off. The yeah, this is not easy. This is going really slowly, and this little spot here that just will not unspot. Come on. These things are always where it's highly visible. I'm tempted to use the file on it, but I know that the file is going to leave really. I've done this just a little while ago. I did it on a little spot, just a tiny little spot, and the scratch marks in the file took just a long time to get rid of. So I'll use a slightly coarser sandpaper. I know on camera you can't really see what I'm seeing because I've got big magnifying lenses on over my eyes, and you're looking at it at a distance. So you'll just have to take my word for it that there were seam marks there that were unseemly. But yeah, the B-70. So what happened was there was this. You, why not? This is actually how it happened, right? They crashed it during a publicity shot. Mm-hmm. So there was, they wanted to take pictures of the B-70 in formation with some other planes at the time, like an F-104 and something else. So they were flying information. And there was a camera plane, taking pictures, trying to make sure the sun angle was right and everything like this. And it was kind of like, well, can you move a little to the left? The sun is glinting off of your canopy, that kind of thing. Anyway, these were incredibly experienced test pilots flying these things, information for a publicity shot. And one of the fighter jets, I think it was an F-104, clipped the wing of the B-70, lost control because it hit something where it shouldn't have. And the B-70 didn't, maybe it was the tail. No, it was the tail, the vertical stabilizer. B-70 flies along for a while until the plane realizes that it's missing a significant part of its control surfaces and then starts going out of control. And one of the crew members, I believe, died. I think the F-104 pilot did too. It was a serious tragedy. So the prototype was lost, fighter was lost, 2 pilots were lost, just so that they could, because they were taking pictures. Yeah. That was just an amazingly stupid thing. But the B-70 never went into production, never got past the prototype stage because it was just too expensive. And by that time, ICBMs were, solid fueled, and they were more reliable and couldn't be shot down. We didn't give up on supersonic bombers, though. And just like fighters, once they got up to like the F-117, the 100 series ended. With bombers, after the B-70, the numbers went back down again, and the next one was the B-1, which was also a supersonic bomber, but it had, engine technology especially had changed a lot over time. And it was kind of like the B-58 in that it was, would fly at subsonic speeds and be refueled multiple times and then make a mad dash to the target and get away. Use swing wing technology. That was a thing for a little while. It was used on the F-14 Tomcat and the TFX. I think it was the F-111, if I remember correctly. The wings would swing in and out so that when it was landing or taking off or just cruising at a relatively slow speed, like when it's getting refueled, the wings would swing out so that I could fly at that speed more efficiently, not stall out. And then they'd swing in and it reduced drag, and so it could fly faster. So that's how that was supposed to work. The swing wing technology, just a lot of moving parts, and the more moving parts there are, the more likely something will go wrong. So it required a lot of maintenance. That's why the F-14, which was the Top Gun plane, that went out of service. It was big and heavy and complicated, and pilots liked it and people liked watching it and all of that, but it became impractical to keep flying it, so they stopped. So that was the B-1. And then stealthiness came along. The B-52 and the B-1 and the B-58, those were not stealthy planes. They were just brute force kind of planes, right? But then stealthiness came along, and it was, well, we don't have to worry about wasting a huge amount of fuel flying faster than the speed of sound. We can just be sneaky. We can sneak up on people, and if they can't see us, they can't shoot us down. So the whole thing about flying higher and faster, like the SR-71 never got shot down, even though it flew over enemy, adversary territory constantly. That was its job because it flew so high and fast. Stopped doing that with the bombers, and then we got the B-2, which looks like a big bat wing. Very cool looking, weird plane. Incorporated stealthiness. An upgraded model of the B-2. I think they're calling it the B-22, which I can't remember. Why can't I remember that? Anyway, an upgraded model of it, which looks pretty much the same, but is supposedly very different, at least in terms of its capabilities, is coming out. Well, I think that'll do there. Now I'll get on the other side. Yeah, this is okay now. That took a lot of work to get it to that point. This leg goes. Again, I will express gratitude for having this be a solid piece of plastic so that I can hold it and sand it and not break parts off of it. I mean, this could be, the legs could be separate. It could be, it could have been molded that way, where the legs were separate and the arms and stuff like that. And then it would, this would just be, this would be me making really grumpy noises as I kept breaking parts off. But you don't see the bombers fly much anymore. It was a time when sometimes they'd show up at air shows. I actually kind of think that what's happening is that they're just so expensive to fly that they're not going to go halfway across the country just for a demonstration flight. I'm not sure about that, but they just, you hardly ever see them just do a flyby. And maybe if they were on a training mission or something, I just happened to take them in the vicinity of something like an air show, they might fly over, but that's very common anymore. And then you have this weird situation where there's some planes have been 60 years ago. The last B-52, I believe, was manufactured in 1964. That's the last time one of those came off the assembly line. And granted, they've been remodeled and rebuilt many times, both inside and out. But there are still B-52s in active service that date back 60 years. Okay. And you'd say, well, why not? But then, put that in perspective. The Wright brothers flew in 1903? I think that was their first flight, 03 or 04. And compare that to 60 years later, which would have been 1964, okay, which is when we were routinely flying faster than the speed of sound and the Concorde was being built. That sort of thing. And think about how much things changed between 1904 and 1964. And then you say, we still have planes that were built 60 years ago flying in active service. That would be like the Wright military flyer, their first military plane that was built in 1909 or something like that. If the Air Force was still flying that in the 1960s. That way. The same thing's true of airliners. The ones that were really inefficient, like the 727 and the three-engined ones, DC 11. There was a Lockheed one at the time too, the 1011. But yeah, it's just It's amazing how rapidly things aren't changing compared to how rapidly they were before. Okay, this is really going poorly here. Can't seem to get to the inside of the leg. You can see the white. I think you can see the white part here. Maybe right there where the plastic is still rough because there's a ridge where the two halves didn't meet. Can't get the sandpaper in there well enough to smooth it out. I eventually am finished with the inside of this leg. I'm going to take a very quick break, just a quick personal break. Back and finish this up. But this is proving to be very, very challenging here. I need what I really need is like the equivalent of like a dental drill. Oh yeah, people do that. They probably do. They get like a little dental drill with a polishing thing on the end. Instead of a drill, it would be like you use when you're waxing a car, right? Thing. The polishing thing, whatever that is, the thing that polishes stuff. Yeah. I bet people who do this for a living and make the models that show up on the box tops because they're so, amazing. I bet they have tools like that. I'm just lucky I've got head magnifiers. So while I am trying to get these last bits done here, and starts to cramp up. Okay, there's a divot in the leg there, and that's just going to have to stay. There's nothing I can do about it. Using the fine grit to polish what I have done with the other one. The little divot becomes ever more evident as it fills in with the plastic dust. It's on the inside of the bottom of the leg. Show very much. It's one of those things that shouldn't be there, but it's just annoying. Okay. There. Out. A bit surprised I haven't snapped the head off. Not that I want to snap the head off. It's just that I'm surprised I haven't done it. Yeah, as I mentioned, there's a serious flaw in the helmet that I kept looking at and thinking, is it supposed to be this way? And every time I looked at it, it was more and more obvious that it's not supposed to be this way. To get to that as well. Okay, so I've got this side resculpted. I should have taken a before and after of this. This was really a disastrous mess. So it's significantly improved. This one's not too bad. This side is not too bad. And I've gotten most of it off already. Just, there's this little bit up here. This won't take too long. And then just the side of his helmet here, that's just bad. It's just the ridge there that is not supposed to be there. Okay, I do need to take a quick break. This will be just not even 5 minutes. I'm not even going to put the break sign on. I'm just going to pop off camera for a bit. I'll let you continue to look at Porco's torso here. Be right back. And here I am back again. And I will continue. What have I got left? Half hour? Okay. I really want to finish this. And I'm doing stuff that you can hardly see that I can see through the head magnifier as I continue the quest to make this Porco Rosso minifig not look bad. Get rid of the mold seams. Filing and sanding some more, and then filing and sanding. There's been a lot of filing and sanding here. It's closer to being done than when I started. That's always a good thing. There is on occasion, it does happen, that I could be doing this for a while and then I actually end up like breaking something or messing it up, and I could end up being further from being done than when I started. That happened once on the Apollo model. Okay, I thought I was going to be clever and add some extra detail that didn't need to be done. Okay, it would look good if it did. And so I got out my extremely fine tipped felt tip pen and put little dots of black ink on some raised buttons or surfaces. And one of them missed a little bit. And there was this tiny dot, just barely visible without these head magnifiers, okay? But I could see it and I knew it was there. And was, geez, I can't believe that. And so if that was what I would normally do, and what I then tried to do was to touch it up with the silver metallic paint that was the base color. But I had used a felt tip pen, right? And so what happened was that the paint dissolved the ink. So instead of having not a pin head, but a pin point, just to give you that kind of perspective, a pin point of ink, I had a discolored spot. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. And my attempt to do a tiny little bit of detail with pinpoints of black ink turned into such a mess that I had to reprime and repaint the entire thing. That was one of those where I am not further along than I started. I am definitely less further along than I started. I had to start all over again. I really want to finish this today, even if it takes the rest of the time, and it's at the rate it's going, it will take the rest of the time, so that I can prime it. So that when I put together the cage for the top of the cockpit, okay, when I do that, probably Friday, I can, if I need to finish this and put it in the seat before I attach the cage, I can dive right in and start painting it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll demonstrate it a little bit later, or you'll see it on Friday. This is one of two Porco Rosso minifigs. This is the one that sits inside the cockpit of the plane. If the plane is ever turned into an airplane, it sits inside of it. I test fit it, so it actually does fit inside of it. Wasn't sure it would. Sometimes these things don't. And the other one is just a stand-up. It stands on a stand. It's a display Porco. That's not to scale. He's much larger. I have that primed already. So if at some point I end up having to take a break from working on the model, or it's just not going well, or something like that, I'll start painting the minifig, the Porco Rosso minifig. Needing a bit that I didn't see before. Rotated the model and just saw a flaw right on its sleeve here. Big one. Giving up. Here it looks like it has an extra finger. Things you see and find when you think you're almost done. I'm talking in plurals again. It's not you, it's me. The things I see and find. I think I'm almost done, and you go, just rotate the model in a different direction, and you go, I said you again. I go, really? That, why is that there? Did the design people or the manufacturing people decide that that's where the mold was going to join? Yeah, sometimes they leave their mold seams, not mold. Okay, it must be the last half hour of the stream. I'm starting to become incoherent. That's a regular feature. Is that during the last half hour I become somewhat incoherent and start dropping things and breaking things. And this is why I don't do extremely delicate stuff near the end. Like I'm not going to assemble the cockpit cage during the end of the stream because it'll end in tears. So what I'm doing here, at the last, when I thought it was mostly done, is actually pretty important because this part of the model really shows a lot. So taking extra care to get the side of the glove, which is where the mold seam was, right along the side of the glove. sleeve that is hanging on forever. What I'm going to end up doing, because there's a lot of this little plastic dust on it, is I'll be washing this thing in isopropyl alcohol, just wiping it down with a paper towel and that kind of thing. And then I'll be priming it. Sleeve will just have to stay there. Try to get rid of this bit that makes it look like it's got an extra finger without getting rid of the actual finger. I need to take so close. And I need to do the helmet, before time is up. Yeah, see just at the back of the helmet here, there's a seam that goes right across. That just can't be there. Goes right across and onto its earphone. Really delicate spot because the goggles are up here and the goggle headband is there. Make sure this is done because it's right at the top of its head, right? It's going to show in a major way. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's just like its headband or something. But as I looked at it, it became more and more apparent that that is not what it was. That it was like a super flaw. Coming along. It's actually coming along a little better than I feared. Quite fearful about how this will go, but it's not too bad. This will be good. I'll get this Porco Rosso figure ready to go. What did it take me? Like an hour and a half to seriously. Yeah, it took that long to get this so it would be presentable. That's pretty amazing how long it can take just to do this tedious prep work because the molding process wasn't good. Yeah, like some of the other models, I end up spending as much time fixing what should have been molded nicely in the first place. Spend more time doing that than actually building the model. But people who make the models that go on the covers of things, they actually end up sometimes just fabricating their own parts because the stuff that comes with the model is so not good or maybe inaccurate that they just make their own. I have done that on minifigs with sword blades and arrow points, but I haven't had to do that with these models yet. Seem to have done it. I think it looks whatever the problem there is almost completely gone now. Right. Stay on camera. I don't know how I managed to wander off the camera. Did I used to have an X. I used to put like maybe I should put an X here that tells me that's the spot. If I'm there, I'm on camera. I don't know how long I've been off camera. I wasn't watching. I was watching what I was doing and not watching what you're watching. It's almost time to wrap up, and I'm almost done. We just have a little bit of recalcitrant plastic right here on the edge of the goggles. So I want to say thank you for joining in. And you absolutely must check out our Dungeons and Dragons show. Dice and Dungeons is about Dungeons and Dragons. We put on a show that gets onto Twitch and as a podcast and as a YouTube thing. We do 3 episodes a month. All the old episodes are on YouTube, so you can do some catching up if you want, or catch them at a time other than the Sunday afternoon when they air. Can you still say that? When they stream? Yeah, when they stream on Twitch. You can do that, and our show is, I must say, pretty amazing. It's really entertaining. The dungeon tiles, the minifigs, the absurdities of our characters, just all really, really entertaining. I think if you caught it, if you check in on it, you would enjoy it. So Porco Rosso is wearing sunglasses and goggles. Yep, good eye protection going on here. I think I cleaned this up pretty well. There's still, like right here at the top of the strap of his seatbelt, it's still a little bit I can see it with the head magnifiers. I probably wouldn't see it if I didn't have these on. Was it the bug bladder beast of thrall? If you can't see it, it can't see you. Okay, that was the feature. So Ford was facing the bug bladder beast and let's put a towel over his head, not the bug bladder beast's head, his head, because then he couldn't see it. Because if you can't see it, it can't see you. And then he was able to escape. So if you can't see the flaws, then they're not there. Similar lack of logic. Well, I'm going to get this thing primed between now and Friday. And then if I need to paint it before installing it, I'll be able to do that. Take this off. The good part, the really good part, is being able to sit up so much straighter. I probably, could work straight up. Whatever. I just said whatever. That's not bad. I only said whatever once this stream. Well, except for the times when I'm not saying. Those don't count. Yeah, so you need to watch our Dungeons and Dragons show. Please do that. It's really, really good. It's really cool. We're good. Alexis, our DM, is an amazing voice actress. I mean, she does tons of different voices for different characters, and some they're actually pretty spectacular. And taking the clamps off, I want to put this is miscellaneous stuff. I want to put these. These are not ready yet for priming. They're not ready for prime time. How many times have I said that? Each time it's annoying. Put these guys here. This is the other Porco Rosso figure. This one gets to stand up on the stand. Stand next to his plane. He's too large. You can compare the two. Okay, this is to scale. This one isn't. But, it's a good display figure. So at some point, sometime I'm going to actually start painting the minifig. You never know when that's going to happen. That's going to get primed. These parts can just sit here. Cover all of this up so it doesn't get dirty, dusty. And I never got around to showing our dungeon tiles. I'll do that Friday. Okay, on Friday, I'm going to assemble the cage. On Friday, I'm going to assemble this bit here, these parts into that cage, which then goes over the cockpit, over the seat. Okay, once this is assembled, which will be a little bit tricky because there's 4 parts that all need to be aligned, and the contact points for the cement are incredibly tiny. I might even end up using contact cement on those just so that they grab more quickly and still give me opportunity to move things around a little bit. I might end up trying that. Even though there's a chance the contact cement will ooze out, I can clean off the excess. But I'm going to build this thing out of those parts. And then once that's put together and no longer in danger of breaking or falling apart if touched, the next step is to test to see whether this will fit through that opening on the top or not. because if it does, then I can attach this and put the Porco Rosso figure in later. If it doesn't, I need to finish the Porco Rosso figure, put it in the seat, and then put the canopy on. I'm guessing odds are pretty high that it's not going to be able to fit through that. Or if it does, I won't be able to manipulate it or attach it very easily. So I'm guessing I'm going to have to get this guy painted and attached to the seat before I put that on. So I might actually start moving ahead with the engine and the engine cowling, which will result in this sort of thing before I finish the inside of the cockpit. So that's what's going to be happening. In the interim, I'm going to get a piece of paper towel. Just a little piece of cardboard. I'm going to attach this to the cardboard with a piece of tape, double-sided, folded over tape, so that when I prime it, it doesn't blow away. But I need to wash it. Who knows where the camera went? There it is. Highly sophisticated production value here of me bumping into the ring camera with my head. It's all features. They're not bugs. They're all features of relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. Is me doing things like bumping my head into the camera or chatting away while I'm doing something for the better part of 10 minutes while it's totally off camera and I don't know it and you can't see what I'm doing, or even whether you can believe that I'm doing what I'm saying I'm doing or not. Okay, well, this is ready to be primed now. And as I said, on Friday, I'll be finding out whether this is going to be the next thing I work on, the Porco Rosso figure, or whether it will be deferred while I continue to work on the airplane itself. Parts that I will be working on the airplane itself will be the engine block, which I started to cement together, and we'll finish cementing together. Oh man, I should have done that. Should have done that today, but I didn't. These two parts come together, and when these two parts come together, they will also have seams, mostly in places where you can't see it. It'll be at the bottom, but there will be some places like up in the front. Yeah, well, that fits really well, doesn't it? The alignment pins on this model are not. They don't fit the alignment slots very well. Okay, well, this is going to be cemented together and aligned and then cleaned up, but I will on Friday be able to sand out the seams that are barely visible, but still present along the tops and the sides of the engine headers. Okay, it's time for me to quit. I need to stop because I'm getting cold and tired, and who knows what will happen if I keep going. But I'll be back on Friday and continue to plug away at the Porco Rosso model here. And I'll be doing that until it's done. I need to prime the back and then the front. And the tape has disappeared. Yeah. And I'll also be looking for things that have moved and I can't find them. That got moved when the workbench was being used for other purposes while I was gone. Thanks, everybody. I will be back on Friday at more or less 10, and I'll be continuing to work slowly, methodically, and tediously on the Savoia S.21. See you all then.